Hello everyone and welcome to this class where we'll be capturing the magic of a city at sunset in watercolor. I'm Will Ellison and I'm really happy that you're here. We'll be exploring a number of fun techniques and expressive color choices that make cityscape paintings so vibrant and atmospheric. Regardless of your level of experience of watercolor, you can follow along at your own pace and improve your painting abilities.
I've been a professional watercolor artist for many years now, exploring many different subjects from wildlife and portraits to cityscapes and countryside scenes. I've taken part in many worldwide exhibitions and been lucky enough to win awards from well-respected organisations such as Winsor & Newton, the International Watercolour Society, the Masters of Watercolour Alliance, and the SAA Artist of the Year Award. I also have collectors that buy my paintings around the world. Watercolour can be intimidating for beginners, so my aim is to allow you to relax and have fun learning this medium step by step. Hopefully, by the end, you'll surprise yourself with a nice painting. If this class feels too intimidating or too simple, please check my other classes as I have them available across all levels. My approach to watercolour starts off loose and expressive with no fear of making mistakes because we're just creating exciting textures for the underlayer. Then as the painting goes on, we'll add more details, bringing the painting to life and making it pop. I try to simplify complicated subjects into easier shapes that encourages playfulness.
From the warm oranges and pinks of the sunset sky to the deep blues and purples of the building, we'll be using a range of watercolor effects to create a stunning layered composition that captures the magic of this fleeting moment in time.
When you enroll in my class, I'll give you the high-resolution image of my painting to use as a guide. Today's focus is about painting rather than drawing, so I have included templates you can use to help you sketch out the drawing before you paint. I'll also include my colour charts, which are an invaluable tool when it comes to choosing and mixing colours. Throughout this class, I'll be sharing plenty of tips and tricks. I'll show you how to use mistakes to your own advantage, taking the stress out of painting, and having fun. I'll explain which supplies I'll be using so you can follow along exactly. I'll also cover how to choose and mix harmonious colours. I'll be splitting everything up into short videos so it's easier to take in. You can also pause at any moment if you want to take more time. If you have any questions, you can post them in the discussion thread down below. I'll be sure to read and respond to everything you guys post. Don't forget to follow me on Skillshare by clicking the follow button at the top. This means you'll be the first to know when I launch a new class, post giveaways, or just have an interesting announcement to share with my students. You can also follow me on Instagram to see my latest works.
So if you're interested in learning new enjoyable watercolor techniques whilst creating your own masterpiece, I'll be thrilled to have you in my class. So grab your brushes and let's begin. First of all, thank you so much for joining this class. I deeply appreciate it. We're going to have a good time learning about watercolor using a fun, easygoing approach. As seen in the introduction video, today we're going to paint a cityscape scene at sunset. This class will be focusing on the painting aspect of watercolor. So to save time, I'll be starting the class from the painting stage, having the drawing already sketched out. Watercolor can be unpredictable, so I tend to make changes as I go along, and because of this it's a good idea to watch the whole thing through first before painting along, so you can see what's to come.
You're welcome to copy my drawing and follow it exact, or experiment with your own. I will put my painting in the resource section so you can use it as a reference throughout the process. There is also a template you can use to trace and transfer it onto your paper. Don't feel guilty about tracing when using it as a guide for learning how to paint. It's important to have the underdrawing correct so that it doesn't inhibit your ability to practice and learn the watercolor medium itself. Whichever way you use this class, it would be great to see the outcome and the paintings you create in this class. I'd love to give you feedback, so please take a photo afterwards and share it in the Student Project Gallery. You can find the gallery under the same Project and Resources tab. On the right, you'll see a green button that says Create Project. Tap that, and once you're there, you'll have the option to upload a cover photo and a title and write a little description. I would love to hear about your process and what you learned along the way. Once your project is uploaded, it will appear in the Students Project Gallery. You can view other projects here, and I'd highly encourage you to like and comment on each other's work. We put so much time and effort into creating our paintings, why not share it with the world and help support each other along the way?
Now that you have a good idea of this class, let's get stuck into it, starting with the materials and supplies I'll be using. Let's go over the materials and supplies I'll be using so you can paint along.
We'll start with the colours I use, and like most of the materials we'll be using today, it's a lot to do with preference. I have 12 stable colours in my palette that I fill up from tubes. They are cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, lavender, purple, viridian, black or neutral tint, and at the end of the painting I often use white gouache for tiny highlights. I don't use any particular brand. These colours you can get from any brand, although I personally use Daniel Smith, Winsor & Newton or Holbein paints.
So let's move on to brushes, and to keep things simple, I'll only be using a small selection of brushes.
First is this mop brush. Mop brushes are good for broad brush strokes and filling in larger areas or washes, but they also have a tip for some smaller details, so they are one of my favourite types of brushes. Next is this Skoda Perla brush. I use various sizes, but for this painting I'll use size 8. These brushes allow for more precision because they have a finer tip and last quite a long time. And for even more precision, when painting final touches or highlights for example, I use a synthetic size 0 brush. All brands have them and they're super cheap. This here is a sword brush or a rigger brush. It's quite long but thin. It's only used for very small details, much like the size 0 brushes, but it holds more water and pigment, saving time and effort refilling. The only drawback is it's more difficult to control as it's more flimsy. And that's it for brushes. You're of course welcome to use your own favourites as well. On to paper. The better quality your paper is, the easier it will be to paint. Cheap paper crinkles easily and is very unforgiving, not allowing you to rework mistakes. Good quality paper, however, such as cotton-based paper, not only allows you to rework mistakes over multiple times, but because the pigment reacts much better on it, the chances of mistakes are a lot lower and you'll more likely create better paintings. I use Arches because it's what's available in my local art shop.
Next, a few supplies that will come in very handy.
A water spray is absolutely essential. By using this, it gives you more time to paint the areas you want before it dries. Also, it allows you to reactivate the paint if you want to add smooth lines or remove some paint.
And lastly, masking tape, and this will just hold the paper firm onto the surface and create a nice clean border at the end of the painting. And that's all you need to know to follow along. Let's start the painting.
This time we're going to paint a sunset scene of a town, of a city. This is actually Edinburgh we're going to be using today. This is the reference image that I'll be using. It's quite a dark image, but I'm just going to be using the silhouettes of the building, the shape of the building as my main composition. I've changed it around a bit. I've moved the building, the main building, over to the left a bit more, and I've put my vanishing point there and basically composed everything around that vanishing point, so as we paint we'll draw the attention down there, creating a bit of depth. I've just got my colour charts here to try and work out which colours I should use, and I think there's some nice oranges there, yellowy orange, so I'm going to do some cadmium red with cadmium yellow just for those little highlights, but most of it will be cerulean here, and then going to go into some purple there, maybe some lavender actually, but yeah, purple as well, just there, So, of course, you can mentally prepare for this, but when it comes to actually painting, watercolour has a mind of its own, so it could go anyway. I might have to scratch that, I have to sort of work with what happens with the pigments. But as long as you're having fun, that's the right mindset to have. So let's get on with it. So one of the most important things when painting the sky is making sure you mix all your colours beforehand and you have enough of them so that you don't run out just when you need it, because it's a lot of space to cover and you're going to be putting them down at specific times depending on the wetness, so you've got to prepare your washes beforehand. And even you can have like a couple or 3 brushes pre-loaded with the paints before you even start. So I'll do that when the time comes. So first of all, I'm going to mix the blue section. So this is cerulean. And a bit of lavender. I'm going to add a bit more water there. So that's one colour. Next, a bit of this purple, again with some lavender. A bit of this yellow, with a bit of cadmium red. So now I've prepared 3 brushes, blue, yellow and orange, and I'll be using that for the main brush. I'm just going to spray my water just to activate it so that it's easy to mix the colours in and it doesn't dry too quickly. Starting off lightly, I'm just going to put that in. Going in with the blue now. Putting in some water by itself. A bit more blue here actually. When it's this wet, the colours will blend much more than when the painting is dry. Now, time to add some orange. That's very powerful orange actually. Can do another spray. Can be quite intimidating, this orange, because it looks so bright, but it will fade. It will spread and fade and look okay in the end, I think, I hope. Especially because it changes as it dries. What it looks like now when you put it on won't be what it looks like in 5 minutes. Through wispy clouds. Going all the way to the horizon there. Starting to get a bit fiddly up there, but I had to fix it. See what I did, I made a little bit of a mistake. I added a brush with too much water on to paper that was already drying and it was cauliflowering. So I'm going to dry that now and come back when it's done. So now we're going to move on to the buildings themselves. I'm going to start this side and basically do one big wash over all these buildings here, merging into the distance there, and then in fact I'll do that after merging in there as well. But I'm just going to take some time now to make a big pool of water here, enough to cover the whole of that area. So I'll come back, I'll do that off camera and come back, because there'll be a lot of time where I'm concentrating and not talking, and it'll be off camera. So I've mixed a few colours here. This one's a lighter, more diluted wash. This one here is a bit thicker. It's basically ultramarine with some black or neutral tint and a little bit of alizarin crimson to turn it into purple, because I'm going to keep with the kind of purple influence on this painting. And I'm going to paint straight over the windows. I'm not going to worry about them because I can come over them next time, and I'm not going to be focusing on that many darks at the moment. I'm just going to concentrate on blocking off these buildings basically. I'll leave a few white gaps for interest, intrigue. And it's quite important, as I'll try and explain, to have the painting on a slope, the paper on a slope, because you want to have this water build up at the bottom, because you can lift the water back up. It gives you more time, more control, because you know it's running down, rather than if it's flat it could be rolling anywhere. You can experiment with you to dab a few other colours in there like that, leaving a thin white line there. That was too much. That's okay, I can just use a tissue to draw it out again and go back in with the opposite colour. In fact, I think I'm going to change to this larger brush. Takes a bit of concentration, this part. Just going to make that dome a bit green. Then back to the purple, and I can let it run down. It'll merge back into purple. So I'm just looking here. I think I want it to be a bit dark here. I want there's a building going there, so just going to do that. Maybe another dark line there.
Now I'm going to get some pure water on my brush and just flick it. Before I go into this area, I'm just going to wet the paper a bit because I want it to bleed off a tiny bit. I want it to be a bit darker there, and just adding these darks at this stage when it's this wet will blend it quite smoothly. The wetter the paper, the more smooth the marks will be, the more it will blend, and the drier it is, the less it will blend, the harder the lines will be. Just testing out. Okay, I think that's okay. I think that's a bit too much, a bit too dark, so I'll go over the water, lighten it up a bit. Make it a bit more interesting, dabbing some other colours in there. I think I'm going to destroy that a bit more. It's too clean looking, too boring. Now I'm going to mix some quite heavy pigment, burnt sienna and ultramarine, and I'm just going to dab some bits in here because at this wetness, this dilution, it'll create some really nice effects. I'm going to make that a bit heavier. Now I'm going to go again keeping with this dark, almost black colour. I'm going to go across here, basically just marking the tops of these figures. I'm just going to paint upwards here, quite a textured trying to paint the ground. I'm going to get some very wet water here. Very wet water. I mean a very wet brush full of water. Let it run. And even here, keeping in mind where the horizon line is, I'm just going to drag that across. And I'm just going to dry it with a hairdryer now, and I'll save you the noise by switching to it later. After drying and having a look, I think I want this to be a lot lighter here. So
I'm just going to take this big flat brush and rub it and then dab it. I'm using a spray gun because I'm about to add in some windows, or some indication of some windows, and I want the markings to bleed in rather than just have a hard line. I can just about see my lines underneath. Not afraid to use my finger. But there, I want it to be a lot darker. And the time for that is now, so. Just got an emphasis of burnt sienna on that stroke and then cobalt blue on this one. Break it up a bit. Doing a lot of dry brush here, and I use this to try and, if I've got a too wet brush, I kind of use this to dry it out a bit. I'll turn those into flags later on. Put more of an emphasis on the top ones, and then the bottom ones can just be a suggestion. The windows, that is. I'm going to go back over some of these with some water. Oops, that was a bit too much pigment. By the way, there's no flags in the actual reference image. I just feel like the need to put them in there. I can actually put this down now, I think. Merge that in a bit. Now I want to add the clock in the tower, so I'm just going to paint it with some pure water. Wait for a few seconds. And then rub. Fine. Gonna dry it again. Dried it a bit, but then I decided I want to try something a bit adventurous. And as it's drying, I'm gonna flick just a bit of that lavender in. I'm gonna paint that clock out. Moving on with the details a bit down here. Just decided I wanted a soft edge there rather than a hard edge. So just use this brush that I don't care about it getting dirty, rubbing away. I definitely want it significantly darker in these places, so I'm going back in with the black. Using this small brush to just put that final darks onto the windows here. I will come back later with a little bit of light. Now I think this is dry enough. So I'm just going to put that clock in. What shall the time be? If it's sunset, well, the reference image looks like it's about 7:45. I'm going to do this side. Oh, do a similar kind of colour to keep in with the same colour scheme.
I'll just do that as the base colour, and then later on I'll come back in over the top with some darks. Now I'm going to prepare some of these pedestrians. A bit too much. A bit bright at the moment, but it's okay. I'll sort that out as it goes. I want to put some highlights there later, so I have to make it quite dark in order for the highlights to pop. I want that background building to be less, well, lighter. I want it to be lighter. Okay, now I'm going to start. Well, I'm going to bring
the foreground to, well, I'm going to bring the buildings to the ground. I want to make the heads a bit shorter, and I believe that the I'm going to start painting the cars now. I should have made the cards bigger really, because it's difficult to get nice nice cards at this size. Doesn't really give it room. Oh, there's noise outside. Some tires. then in the distance just implying just more roofs. That shadow across. Another shadow across. I don't know where these shadows are coming from, but I think they'll look okay in the end. I'm going to deal with these people later. The people are drawing, painting, obviously. Okay. Okay, here we go. run a bit of water over certain areas. Because I kind of want this area to be a bit messy. Okay, now I have to position myself because I'm going to connect it to the shadow that will go across here. I don't think I even need to worry about these people. Bit higher. to have a very thin line. Just looking for the right brush. There we go. There's the vanishing point, so I'm just going to let it dry. Put here. Let's put a person. Dry brush stroke kind of people. Can be messy, that area. Few signs here. Okay, that's enough for that. want this card to be a bit lighter now. That's okay. I'm going to do a few more of these rub out effects. So I put water on, like so, and then wait a few seconds, then rub. These figures are a bit too bright, so I'm just going to bring them down a bit.
Now going back up to these windows, I'm going to do some very small highlights. I have to be very subtle with this white. In fact, that's too much. Thinnest line. I'm thinking that's where the vanishing point is, right there. Just going to create a little marker there, just so that I know that's the line.
Go in with a different colour now. Orange. Coming close to the end now. Let's blur that up a bit. Okay, very close to finishing now. I'm just going to do the flags. Which is the Scottish flag. I don't think I'll bother with the white cross in the middle. And the birds. Thank you very much for joining me with this painting.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed watching. Now it's time for you to paint this scene. Let's have a close-up look at the painting. It's always a good idea to disconnect from the painting a bit after finishing so that you can have a fresh eye for any corrections or alterations. I decided to add a few more details, like this green awning.
Try not to compare your painting with mine, as no two paintings are alike, and everyone has their own individuality and nuances. In fact, painting in this style should be very liberating because it encourages loose brush marks and gives an opportunity to discover your own style. If you would like feedback on your painting, I'd love to give it. Or if you would like any advice related to watercolour, please share your painting in the Student Projects gallery down below and I'll be sure to respond. If you prefer, you can share it on Instagram, tagging me @WillElliston, as I would love to see it. Skillshare also loves seeing my students' work, so tag them as well @Skillshare. After all the effort we put into it, why not show it off? Remember, please click the follow button up top so you can follow me on Skillshare. This means you'll get a notification as soon as I publish my next class or have important announcements like free giveaways or sharing some of my best student artwork uploaded to the project gallery.
Thank you so much again for joining me today. Please leave a comment down below in the class discussion area if you have any comments or questions you have about this class. If you have any subject, wildlife or scene you'd like me to do a class on, let me know about it there in the discussion section as well. If you found this class useful, I'd love to hear your feedback on it. I hope you learned a lot in this class and inspired to paint more in this glorious medium. Until next time, bye for now.